Multi-factor authentication. So what is it? There's multiple factors, right? It's in the title. Something you know, that could be a password, that could be a PIN, right? Series of digits, series of letters. Could be an image, right? You know, you take your pick. It's something that you're aware of. Ideally, nobody else is aware of, but we'll get into why we need multiple factors. Something you have, so that could be a token. It could be your phone. It could be like a bank card, right? Bank card and a PIN, something you have, something you know. And then something you are, so these are biometrics. These are fingerprints, iris scans, earlobe scans, facial recognition. They're all something that you possess, ideally uniquely, not always the case, right? But it's at least a factor of security to kind of identity proof you, prove who you are. You know, if you're going to get a driver's license, you got to show up with proof to say you are who you are, so they give you the right name, right address, et cetera, et cetera. Prove you're a citizen, prove you got, you know, birth certificate, social security number, whatever. There's always a listing of things that are required to do that. It's not much different from a authentication standpoint on a website. So everybody's got a password. Most of you probably have really crappy passwords. It just happens, you know, you pick your dog, you pick the street number you live on or whatever, and there's your password, whoop-dee. Nobody's going to know it because it's in your head and you've got a super cool way to do it. No, wrong. Everybody knows it. There's been so many password dumps and leaks. They're pretty meaningless these days. You got to have one. They're good. But most people's password security is very low. We'll get into how to fix that. And so these password dumps, these credential dumps, just happen. You're not the cause of them. They just happen, right? You go on a fanfic website or whatever, some low security website, sign up for it, use the same password you have for Instagram, for Twitter, for Facebook, for Gmail, because it's easy to remember, it works for you. That place gets hacked and now they got your credentials and they go bounce that against something that's more important to you. Bank information, email information, you name it. If you're using the same password, that's what happens. They call it credential stuffing attacks. So they get these lists of passwords and username combinations, email addresses, and just throw them against the wall at something else of more importance, right? Hey, we got all the information from Facebook. Let's try it against everybody's bank account information and see what happens. If you get a hit, awesome. It was free money. It was cheap. It was easy to do. So you can see here the list of breaches, right? 772 million account collections from one. Facebook got dumped, I think it was last year, 509 million accounts leaked. So even if it's not directly your password, it's your email, could be your phone number, could be identifying information. So, 634 websites in total, 11, billion accounts owned. There's this website, haveibeenpwned.com. You can go in, type in your email address or username, whatever. It'll tell you which dumps, which password dumps you are a part of, and maybe let you know you should change your password. Good password security, change it at least once a year, if not every 3 months. Why? Because this is easy to do from an adversary standpoint. It just happens. You can't stop it. You don't control website security. You're just a user of it. So it happens. This is how you kind of save yourself from it. So two-factor authentication. If a website or program service offers it, turn it on, use it. Why? Because just because somebody has your password, if they don't have that second factor, ideally. If they do, you're kind of screwed. It happens. But that second factor makes that password, just having that password, useless. So somebody uses that password, they're prompted for that second factor of authentication. They don't have it, it's not very useful. So in that, hey, I've got your Facebook account information, I'll bang it against your bank account information. If without that second factor, they log in, they get access, they can do transactions. With that second factor, you'll get a prompt that says, hey, we saw you logging in, here's the code. If you provide that code to that person, they're logged in. So don't give your code out unless you asked for it, right? Pretty obvious advice. Don't give it to somebody who calls you or texts you about it. Hey, this is actually a screenshot of a text from somebody that I work with whose Twitter account was attempted to be hacked. They took multiple pieces of data from various leaks. So what their Twitter account name was, what their phone number was, what their email was, and used it for this kind of pretexting addition to this hack. So they knew the guy's Twitter account, they knew his email. They sent him a text and said, hey, look, we saw somebody who's trying to reset your password. We're going to send you a code. Send us that code, and we'll take care of it. Super sketchy, super red flaggy. Don't do it, right? Just ignore them. What this tells you is somebody's trying to hack your stuff, so don't fall for it. That second factor, though, prevents this, right? If they don't do this, they can't get in. Keep your things up to date. Mr. T, great guy, listen to him, right? Patch your systems. Most modern things auto patch, auto update. It's something you don't necessarily have to worry about, but it's something to be mindful of, right? If you only update on Wi-Fi and you're never on Wi-Fi, then you're not updating. If you're on a Windows machine, they're not always set to auto update. If you're on an Apple, they may not always auto update. So keep on top of these things. Why? Because everything has a bug. They're found constantly, they're patched constantly. Security bugs are the most meaningful bugs. If you don't patch a security bug, you leave yourself out in the open. And so, what's the threat landscape around this, right? Bugs are bad, security defects are worse. There are repositories for all known bugs. That's what the MITRE CVE database is for. You can see there's 187,000 known CVE records. So these are just known security bugs, graded in various degrees to how susceptible they are, how bad they are, how easy they are to exploit. There's also, on the other side of the coin, the exploit database. So this is just an open database. There's almost 48,000 entries here of how to exploit those vulnerabilities. It's an easy thing to do these days. Known vulnerability, known exploit, put them together, somebody gets in. So, like I said, I didn't know this was high schoolers, but there's a website called Shodan. What it does is it scans the internet for things really. And it gives you a listing of them. So you can easily search like you would in Google or Bing or name your search engine, DuckDuckGo, for things, specifically things to exploit. So Apache is a web service, web server. I did a quick search for, interestingly enough, over here, that's Black Hat College. That's their website. Here's the report on it, open ports, open things to exploit. Here's a deeper view into the report. Here's what they're running from a versioning standpoint, and here's exploits or vulnerabilities that they may or may not have, right? This was quick, this was easy. I did it in 10 seconds and got a nice little report to tell me, hey, if I wanted to hack this, I could, potentially, right? These are all not solid, but theoretically. Point being, right, here's the Apache version up there, 2.4.6. If that's an old version, fix it. Don't sit there out in the open with known issues. As I'd mentioned before, most phones, most devices these days, applications on phones will auto-update. So it's nothing you really have to worry about, but it's something you should be mindful of. Just make sure if you're going out in the open, hacker conference, something like that, giant public place where nefarious individuals can, do stuff, just make sure you're up to date. It's kind of just general best advice. Risky clicks, I'm not one for definitions, but I had to phone this one in. I didn't have a good, what is it? Because it seems self-explanatory. Every link is a potential good or bad director, right? You never know where it's going to go unless you're paying attention to it. So if you don't pay attention, don't click it. General advice right there. So what does it look like? Here's an SMS. This is a small stretch to the topic here, but texting scams, right? Somebody asking you, this may apply later in your lives, could apply now, I don't know. If you're working, maybe it applies. CEO scam. This is actually, again, somebody from work that I work with got this text. I got this text too. Somebody's saying that hey, I'm the CEO, can't talk right now. Go to this store, get me Apple gift cards, send them to me. I'm trying to get a gift for somebody I'm talking to. This is super common, super easy to do. Low cost of entry from an adversary standpoint. The second one, text scam, people just blast these out to any old number. Hey, missed a delivery, here, click this link to redirect or whatever. That link potentially sensitive malware, some exploit, trying to get a hold of your phone, get a hold of your data. One in the top right, email phishing attempts. Hopefully you've heard about these before. This is not news to you. If it is, we can go deeper. But just the general, hey, look, it's Bank of America, but it's sent from not Bank of America. It's Comcast address. It's sent to undisclosed recipients. The reply to address is to somebody else. It's not to Bank of America. Like obvious red flags for should I trust this, should I not? Here's a link to bankofamerica.com. You hover over it. It's not actually to bankofamerica.com. You can see it's to bit.do. Real red flags, They're trying to get you to trust what they're saying, what they're doing. There's maybe a sense of urgency. Typically, these are like, hey, we saw somebody try to log in your account. Please click this button to stop it. And it's like, oh, yeah, let me click that. Well, that click brings up a login. That login is not an actual login to Bank of America. Now you've leaked your credentials to somebody, and they're going to do some fun things with it. Here's another one. This may pertain to you. Hopefully it never does, but this is actually getting to be more common. Sextortion scams. These can be targeted, or these can be just sort of blanket mass emails. So the credential leaks I talked about earlier for why you should have MFA, multi-factor authentication. People are using those credential dumps to piece together multiple bits of information about you. I have your email, I have your name, I can cross-reference that with public listings on Facebook and pull out various details to say, hey, look, I've got your password because, hey, maybe I do, and it's maybe a legitimate password. This happened to me too, right? These are just emails that get sent out. They're not actually targeted or directed usually, but from an old password dump, they'll get your password and say, hey, this is your password. Hey, I've seen pictures of you that your parents wouldn't want to see, that your grandparents wouldn't want to see, that it's going to make grandma blush here at the Thanksgiving table shortly. I'll send them out if you don't give me money, right? Here, pay me in Bitcoins. This is a very common scam. Don't fall for it, right? General advice. Don't pay extortions because there's no way to turn them off. They'll get you once, they'll get you twice, they'll get you 3 times, and you'll keep paying them. And there's nothing to prevent them from stopping. If this is a targeted attack, so think blackmail, revenge porn, these sorts of things happen. Ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, whatever your flavor is, decides, hey, I got these juicy pics of you, I'll send them to your mom and dad in the mail if you don't do X, Y, and Z. Happens, right? Yeah. Those ones are legitimate, right? Tell the cops about that. They should be able to handle it. These ones, you tell the cops about it, they ain't gonna do anything. There's nothing to be done about this type of scam. The more targeted ones, where it is blackmail, where it is direct extortion, tell the authorities, right? They could hopefully do something, unless they're covering their trails and whatever. But that's separate topic, separate rabbit hole. General advice, right? Play hard to get. Everybody should know how to do that. Think before you act. Check the hyperlinks. So mouse over that URL, look to make sure it's actually what it's supposed to be. If somebody sends you an email or you get an email that says, hey, you need to log on, don't click the link. Go directly to the website yourself. Go look it up in Google or just type in the URL. Avoid clicking the email link to do the thing. Yeah, it's easy, but sometimes it's not the right link. Sometimes it's there to get you. Once you post, it's there forever. You've probably heard this. Your parents should have warned you about this, right? The internet doesn't go away. It's always got a memory. It's always going to know. So whatever you put on the internet, somebody's going to have it. Somebody's going to know it. So in 20 years from now, all that cringe stuff you're doing now, it's still going to be there. Sorry. I've still got MySpace crap out there. It's not pretty. Be alert of suspicious emails. There's spam. It happens. It's easy. It's cheap to do from an adversary standpoint. It's very low cost, right? It's just an email address that we've pulled from a credential dump. We know somebody's at the other end. So if we get you to click, if we get you to look at it, that's great for us. Not great for you. Password strength. This is if you're not familiar with XKCD, they do webcomics. This one is a very common, popular one, talking about password entropy. So how hard a password is, what is sort of the length of time to crack the password. Generally speaking, the higher entropy, the more chaos, more randomness could exist in the password, the better protected you are. 4-digit password, not a lot of entropy. There's, every digit in the password has a potential of 28 values in it. We're talking uppercase, lowercase, special characters, numbers, that sort of thing. There's only so many variations you can do in 4 bits of data. The more you get, the more variations, the more entropic it is. Boy, that's a really great cutout. I even gave a solid spacing on the edges so this would look good. So you can go with the super complex, I got special characters, I got numbers, I got letters, I got spaces, it's 10 digits or whatever. Just this is hard for somebody, your neighbor, to guess is your password. It's not hard for a machine, and that's what's doing it these days. Machines are going to be guessing your password. So the entropy is very low compared to, hey, here's 4 random words. 4 words that you could put a mental picture in your head to remind yourself about. 4 words that could be the opening to a book, the opening to a poem that means something to you, lyrics to a song, whatever, right? It's something you know, and it's something you're trying to keep other people from knowing. Point being, right, we've got 10 characters? I didn't count. And you got a lot more, right? 4 random words. This is easier to remember than that. Would you agree, perhaps? It's also harder to guess. It's harder for a machine to guess because there's a lot more entropy there. So from a threat landscape perspective, there are online hash crackers. So your password, ideally, from a security standpoint, is hashed in a database somewhere and checked against when you insert it into a login prompt. Those hashes can be cracked online easily. You get a password hash, throw it at crackstation.net, probably get a result. Or they can be cracked offline or in the cloud. So Hashcat, open source project for running hashes. People make entire rigs to do this quickly, fastly. This is, the output there of a password hash crack attempt. They're actually rather quick. Here on the left side, somebody built a 9 CPU or GPU hash cracking rig. They're burning electrons in their house. They've probably got an extra power box to make it happen. But 636 gigahashes a second. That's a lot of data. That's a lot of crunching. Here on the right side, you can see Hive Systems put this together. How quickly can somebody crack a password based off character length, right? 4 character length, instantly. It doesn't matter whether there's special characters, numbers, letters, spacing, capitals, not capitals. It's a garbage password. It will be instantly cracked because 636 attempts at a hash per second. You can blow through that real quick. So kind of general recommendation, keep it at 12 characters, upper and lower case, right? Smack dab in the middle. 24 years to crack it with a password cracking rig if your password hasn't been leaked and they don't know it. Longer the better. Not necessarily the more complex though. Just really the longer the better. But general advice to y'all, get a password manager. Get it and use it. Set it up, make it work. These are screenshots from a password manager called Bitwarden. This is going to sound a bit paranoid, bit conspiracy theory. Trust me, it's not. There are companies, corporations, and governments out there that are interested in your data. Not you in particular. They don't care about you. They care about your data. They care about what you're doing. They care about your demographics and why you're doing it. Hey, high school kid, Bettendorf area, interesting. Maybe socioeconomic data layered in on that. Hey, what kind of ads can I sell to that group? What's of interest there? What can I use to make money off of that? All of that stuff is real. All that data that the ads and marketers collect on you is open for the police to use, which is great. It's awesome. So you're better off keeping it private. And there are ways to do that. You do have a right to privacy, both as a student and as a citizen. Even non-citizens have a right to privacy, right? It's your data, it's your thoughts. There's this argument that your phone is an extension of your brain because most people store things in there that you normally store in your brain or in a diary. I kind of buy into that. So keep your phone secure, keep a password on it, keep a PIN on it. I would argue don't use a biometric. Yeah, they're super easy, but you know, it's super easy for a police officer in a search function to just take that thumb of yours and slap it to your phone and unlock it without a warrant. It happens, right? General recommendations. Use encrypted DNS. Disable unneeded services. Use privacy-focused browser or add-ons to a browser. Use an ad blocker. Generally use a VPN, but only in certain circumstances. If you have something to talk about, use encrypted chat. And then just be aware of what you're sharing and how people can see that. So we'll go into this a bit. Encrypted DNS. Every single time you connect to something, there's a DNS request. Domain name system is what DNS stands for. It's a way to translate something like google.com into an IP where your machine, your device is going to understand it too. This data is unencrypted. Everybody can see it that's looking. Your internet service provider, your mobile service provider has that information. They know that you, just now, looked up twitter.com. May not seem interesting, may not seem important, but that's a singular data point. If you're looking up twitter.com right now and then, 10 minutes from now you go to amazon.com, now I got 2 data points. Okay, they were on Twitter, maybe they saw an ad, maybe they saw a commercial, and they're going to Amazon to go buy something. Interesting from a marketing standpoint. If at, 1 a.m. in the morning, they see, pornhub.com pop up in your requests, okay, what's going on now, right? Again, all of this is in the clear. You're generating data points for marketing, for surveillance, for you name it. It doesn't really matter. It's out there. So what can you do about that? Use encrypted DNS. Some browsers out there, Firefox being one of them, Brave being another, we'll get into that later, support as a default encrypted DNS so that these are just essentially between you and that DNS provider and nobody else that's looking. This is a depiction of it that's super in the weeds. We won't go into it. But here's 2 DNS providers you can leverage for it. Quad 1s, Quad 9s. Again, super technical. I don't know how technical you are as an audience. But go online, look this stuff up. Look up encrypted DNS. There's a lot of tutorials on how to use it, how to leverage it, how to maintain privacy in that front. Disabling unneeded services. Classic example, flashlight app needs access to your full network, needs access to retrieve every single running app you have, to look at all the data on your phone, to get your phone ID, to take pictures. Does a flashlight really need to do that for you, or should it just control the light? There are a lot of apps out there that are free, and they're free for a reason, because they're siphoning your data, they're stealing your privacy, and they're making money from it. You're not. Most things that are free as a service are monetizing you in some reason, some way. Instagram, Facebook, Gmail, all of them are free because you are the product, because they all sell ads. They're all interested that you're, 16 to 18-year-olds in a certain geolocation, that you're interested in some latest band, some latest song, some latest fashion trend. These are all interesting data points to market to you to buy things. That works from a consumer standpoint. It also works from a surveillance standpoint, right? School shooter's an easy one to talk about, right? Because it's like, hey, I've got a 16-year-old who's really interested in guns. Gee, I wondered, should I be worried or not? Make sure you're paying attention to what permissions you have on the apps. You can disable them. You can, per permission, per app. It's gotten a lot better than it used to be in the past. They're pretty open about what's there. Every phone's got a setting for it. Computers, slightly different standpoint there, a little harder to do from a privacy setting. Got to get deeper in the weeds to make it work. If you're interested in some of what I've mentioned about marketers and mass surveillance, Last week tonight, John Oliver did a really good expose, for lack of a better term, back in April on data brokers. These are the folks that you don't know about, that don't make themselves known, that siphon up all your data and sell them to the highest bidder or the lowest bidder and make money off of it. These are the folks that everybody's getting information about you, and they're getting paid to do it, and you're not getting a dime from it. From a browser standpoint, Firefox Focus, Brave, they're both tracking protection and ad blocking. Ads are garbage. Nobody likes them. They just clutter, and they're also used to track your data, right? Every ad you see on one website is sending a cookie and tracking you from one website to the next, to the next, to the next to see where you're clicking and what you're doing and how best they can monetize that. So run something like Firefox Focus or Brave, or if you want to use another browser, look up an ad blocker or a tracking blocker like uBlock Origin. There's a bunch of resources out there. At the end of the deck, you can take a picture of the resource screen. The EFF is a great organization. So Electronic Frontier Foundation, they are all about privacy protection. So they've got this website, ssd.eff.org, that's about surveillance self-defense. It covers more in depth of what I've just sort of grazed across on how to be aware of and protect your own privacy on the internet. And then, yeah, I guess that's my talk.